Welcome to Pody Says, Petty Revenge, for all the stories of small victories over those who've wronged someone.
Shoplifting can cost you a job you haven't even gotten yet. An interesting coincidence happened today when I was stocking shelves at my side job and two girls decided to shoplift a few times, and my supervisor asked them at the door if they were going to pay for those items. They were petty items, as this was at a Dollar Tree, where everything is $1.25. They proceeded to call my manager a racist asshole and a bitch. All three of them, the two girls and my soft-voiced manager, were black. They walked out with the items because, as many people know, retail employees can be sued for physically stopping you for petty theft, unless you're a properly designated security guard. We've been getting ravaged lately by theft, and our location is getting flack from regional for low margins, as our hands are tied. The coincidence came when me and a coworker who managed it decided to grab a bite together at my other job, where I could get us the employee discount. My coworker noticed after we walked in that the same two girls were sitting down across the lobby. I chuckled and we started eating when one of them was called over by my manager there for an interview to begin. Then the other one interviewed. After they were done and walked out, I motioned my manager over and explained the incident that happened less than 2 hours prior. My coworker backed me up and she was very happy to dodge those two bullets. They are no longer under consideration for a position. First reaction from LMAO. I love this type of karma. Luckily, you were there when they ate. The OP responds, I know, it's crazy. I wouldn't have looked at them twice because they changed into something completely different for an interview, and I was talking to my coworker. He looked around, probably because he was in the army, and caught their faces. The next story goes, Dad got decade-long revenge on my auntie. A little setup. My dad is one of 9 children to my grandparents. When the oldest sister, my auntie, let's call her Margaret, got married, one of the gifts she received was 4 very poorly made clay pots from one of her friends who wasn't super close to the family. They were all very different from each other and didn't match at all. I assume they came out of the first-timers pottery class or something. Anyway, fast forward 15 years and my parents are getting married. Margaret shows up at the wedding, as does everyone else. The ceremony and reception pass with no dramas, and everyone goes home. The following week, my parents begin to sort through all of their wedding gifts, unwrap Margaret's to find a very old, worn-looking cardboard box with the old tape still underneath the new tape, put on there by Margaret to hold the lid closed. Dad opens the box to see the 4 pots that had been given to Margaret 15 years prior. My parents knew this was a gift to Margaret originally because on the bottom of the box was a cord of congratulations on your wedding, addressed to Margaret. She hadn't even bothered to take the pots out of the box when she was gifted them or checked the condition when rewrapping them. This thoroughly pissed off my dad. Then, his anger turned to determination as he started to develop a plan that would stretch almost a decade. With Christmas fast approaching, my dad rewrapped the pots in the same box with the same wedding card addressed to Margaret, essentially in the same condition he had received it in. He then wrote another card addressed to another of his siblings, explaining his plan. He gave the present to the youngest of his siblings. The newer card explained that she was to hold on to the pots until the next Christmas, making sure to unwrap it and make sure that everyone could see the pots in one way or the other. The card then explained to leave the wedding card in the box and to not let anyone see it. My auntie would then hold on to the box, pots, and card until next Christmas. She would then gift them, and my dad's note to the next sibling above her in age, my uncle. This cycle would repeat another 8 times until it reached the oldest sibling, Margaret. In my dad's letter, it instructed the last sibling before Margaret to not give her the letter written by him regarding the plan. 9 years after giving the gift away, my dad and all his siblings watched as she pulled out the pots that she had seen being passed around from sister to brother to sister for the last decade. She then noticed the note still in the box. She opened it and a Category 4.2 earthquake was registered as her jaw hit the floor. Now, most people would expect her to erupt in rage, but Australians have some of the best senses of humor on the planet. The family all had a good chuckle about it and moved on to Christmas lunch. The pots are now separated, one going to my dad, Margaret, my grandparents, and the last being the trophy of the annual cricket game. It was sadly destroyed by a rogue ball in that very same yearly tournament and is now only half a trophy. Hope you enjoyed! On to the next story. My grandpa refuses to sell his backyard to developers. Development has been taking over my hometown. It's inevitable, of course, as a lot of people from major cities further up north are moving down here. But it's sad at the same time seeing the fields and forests I used to play in growing up being paved over and turned into condominiums and strip malls. It also has caused the cost of living to increase tremendously, in an area where many people are already struggling to stay afloat. So, as you can imagine, my grandfather, an old stubborn Dutchman who moved here and lived on his property since the 50s, has something to say about it. The street my grandfather lives on used to be backed by a massive forest, but in recent years, developers have bought all of the forest and 90% of it has been torn down, except for this one small, probably 2-acre chunk of forest in the middle of this open field where my grandfather refuses to sell his land. Of course, this is bringing the developers' plans to a halt as they can't pave and build around this single chunk of forest, so all they can really do is wait for him to sell his land. He has been in conflict with these developers for over a year now, and from my understanding, they are offering a lot of money. Well, knowing my grandfather, for as long as he stands on this earth, absolutely no amount of money will convince him to sell that land. I know how frustrating this is for some people, specifically for developers who want nothing more than to throw up some cardboard houses and pocket close to $1 million per. But I have decided that when my grandfather's time is up, I will continue his legacy and make sure that piece of land is never sold. That is my petty revenge. Edit. I'm usually not this type of Redditor, but I just want to say thank you for everyone for all of the kind words, support, and advice. Reading some of these comments actually brought tears to my eyes, and I will be sure to pass along all your kind words to my aupa. I will be contacting the city to see if there is anything we can do to preserve the forest. Thank you again. Also reworded so I don't sound anti-immigrant. Original wording came across wrong. Our first response is from MPHV51. Can an environmental easement on the land be deeded to a land conservancy? That way, it can stay in the family, but will not be able to be developed. OP responds, I honestly have no idea what kind of laws are in place for things like this where I'm from. I really can't see any lawyer or environmentalist making a big deal about it, since it's just a small piece of land and the rest of the forest was already ripped up. Agent C 1983 says, he should have a chat to a lawyer. He might be able to donate it or put it in a trust with conditions that would force the land to remain a forest for all time. The next thought from Touch the Fucking Frog. Years ago, we lived in a beautiful house on the ocean. That house was owned by a developer, and as well 2 others on a strip of 4 houses, and they planned to rip them down for luxury apartments. They went to John, who lived in the house next door for 40 years, and offered him millions to sell. He declined every offer, so they decided to wait him out because surely he would pass and his children would sell. Well, that didn't work so well because his kids said hell no. He wasted at least 10 years of the developer's time. The developer eventually sold the other properties for still a handsome profit, and mansions were built in their place, but it wasn't anywhere as much as they would have gotten for luxury apartment buildings. John's humble family home is still standing now in the shadow of 2 mansions. The OP replies, funny because my grandfather's name is John. Maybe he will live down another John's legacy. Moving on. I'm a GC and had a guy from Craigslist screw me on a job. I got him back though. I had a demo and cleanup job I needed 5 guys for to be sure it was completed on time. I have 3 full-time workers, so I posted an ad for 2 guys to help finish the demo cleanup. Got a response. A guy and his roommate will work for $22 an hour, etc. I told them to be on site at 8. 8:30 hits, they're nowhere to be seen. I call. He tells me his roommate woke up late, but assures me they're on their way. From where he said they lived to my job was about 30 minutes. So, 9:30, still no show. Call. He says he had to stop to get gas and a bite to eat. 10 hits. And at this point, I figure he's just messing with me, so I play into it. He never shows up. About 6 months later, need more help in another job. Post an ad, and this same guy responds. I figure, I don't want him on my job, but I can mess with him. I give him an address in the hills and tell him to be there at 8. I fully expect that he finds pulled the same crap, so I just go about my day. Well, about 8:45 he calls me and is pissed because he was at the house at 8 and no one answered. Then he had to drive back down the hill, about 30 minutes, to get service to call me. I profusely apologized and tell him I had to go to the lumber yard, but that I'm on my way back. So go back to the house and I'll be there in about 45 minutes. 2 hours later, he calls cussing me out. So worth it. Our first reaction is from SG. Tell him that job wrapped up, but send him back to the old address where he first flaked on you. Next response from Pelarizado83. Treat people how you want to be treated, no? Okay, Karma. Totally got what he deserved. And finally, from Red Child. You should have used the same excuse verbatim, because going back to the lumberyard is a work excuse and might be understandable. But waking up late, stopping to get a bite to eat when you're already late, etc., are just plain insulting excuses.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe for more and give us a thumbs up.